creative friends, this is Joy. So I wanted to show you how I made papers and paper stacks for my junk journals. And these are just showing you some coffee dye papers that I did, and here's some jelly print papers that I did. And I will post a video showing you how I did the coffee dyeing, which is the easiest way and less messy way to coffee dye, I think, and how to do the jelly prints that I did like on these papers here, which I figured I'd do a whole bunch of coffee dye papers and jelly print papers so I can use them, put them in my stash and have them to use as backgrounds. And I got a bunch of stamps out that I'm going to use to stamp on some papers so that again I have enough ephemera in my stash to use in my junk journals. And I'm showing you here that for the jelly print papers, I'm going to go through them all and just tear off the edges around them. And so that's what I'm going to do with these jelly print pages. And that way they're all ready to go whenever I decide, to pull some out and use them in my junk journal. And like I said, I have seen other people have like paper stacks with different papers where they could just pull from to use in their junk journal. And so I'm going to do that here at the end, just make a couple of paper stacks that I can, use in my journals. Now those little scraps that I tore off of these jelly print papers, I, can use those to stamp words on, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to throw those away. I'm going to hang on to them because I can always use them to stamp words and, small images on them for my junk journals when I, go to use things in my junk journal. And I probably will go ahead and do that ahead of time. But for now, I decided just to take the stamps that I decided to use, and excuse my clock, it always goes off, it seems like, when I'm recording, and stamp a bunch of these images. And here the ink that I used, and this is a brand new stamp, and so it's sometimes new stamps don't stamp very good until you season them, but it didn't stamp real clear or whatever, so I thought, well, what the heck, I'll just do some images, stamped images all over this page, and that way I have a piece of collage paper that I can use in my junk journal. So I thought, well, that looks pretty cool. So then I pulled out a different ink pad to use for stamping, and I pulled out this different paper as well. Well, you'll see me, I tried to use several different ink pads, but I pulled out this paper, and it's just tracing paper, and that I've had for decades. I don't even know where I got it from, and I have stacks of it. And so I decided to try to stamp on this. It's not tracing paper, it's sketch paper is what it says. Sketch paper or tracing, it's not tracing paper. It's not thin, but it's as thin as tracing paper, but it's not very thick either. And again, it didn't stamp real well, so I wasn't too happy with that, but it's again another piece of paper I can use just for, a background somewhere. And of course, I'm getting ink all over me, and the best way to get rid of ink is use a little bit of alcohol and rubbing it on a piece of paper towel, because this is permanent ink, and so it's really hard to get permanent ink off of your skin, but you can do it with a little bit of alcohol. And I think my ink pad is kind of drying out too, which is another reason why I'm struggling here trying to get a nice clean print. And then that one came out pretty good, but this is a stamp that's, I've used before, and so it is a seasoned stamp. So I was able to get a couple of good images from this particular stamp. And that stamp has like words on it, and so here I'm just trying to clean off my stamp. I don't really go through the trouble of washing them or what have you. I just try to, stamp them as much as I can to get any ink off of them that might be on them. And I figured, that would be the beginning of another piece of paper that I can use in my junk journal. So here I'm going through the other stamps that I pulled out that I wanted to try to stamp out. And so I'm inking this up. And this is another one where at first I wasn't getting a great impression, but I did manage to get a better impression. And there it was just a piece of packing foam that I saved from something at some point, and it is helpful to have something soft underneath to press the stamp into. So that does help you get a much cleaner and better stamp. And here I got a different stamp pad that has, I think, a little bit more juice to it. And I was able, and with that piece of packing, I was able to try to get a couple of decent prints out of this stamp. And again, this is another brand new stamp. Actually, I had gotten this stamp that same day, so I was really, excited to play with it. I would have liked to have gotten a little bit better impression, but I thought, well, it's good enough. And here's another stamp that's fairly new that I've never used before, and again, trying my best. And then I decided to get a stamp block to try to help me put even pressure, because if you don't put even pressure, you may get, like part of the stamp to stamp, but not the other part to stamp. So yeah, I'm definitely not a seasoned or an experienced stamper. I just do the best I can. Although you would think, looking at my scrap room and all the stamps that I have, I would be better at this. But in any case, yeah, I do the best I can. But I really like this ink. I, was at first trying to use the black StazOn, and again, it's, the ink pad needs to be re-inked. But this here, I decided to pull out an archival ink that is like a walnut, and I much preferred that to the black StazOn. And so I ended up deciding to continue to use that on these stamps. Again, another brand new stamp. And I have heard, but I haven't tried it, that if you have a new stamp that you're having trouble getting it to stamp, you can lightly go over the top of it with like an emery board or sandpaper, and you can get it to stamp easier and with a better impression. I don't know if that really works, because again, I've not tried it. See there, you can see if you don't put even pressure, then you can get spots, or if you don't ink it really good, like I may have, I'm not sure if I missed putting ink in that little corner or if I just didn't put enough pressure in that corner. Either or, yeah, that didn't stamp as well as I would have liked. This is just a word stamp, again, a new one that I've got, and I'm just going around the edges and just trying to, add some stamping to the rest of the paper, so that there is just something there that I can use to start with when I go to use it in my junk journal. And so here's another new stamp, and this actually has some words on it as well. And so I'm going to stamp this out and see how that looks. Use my block to try to get even pressure. All the things that, I've learned is helpful, and that turned out pretty good. So I stamped several of these multiple times because I don't know if I'll use the same ones in the same junk journal, but I have several junk journals that I've made, and I've already got in my mind to do another junk journal that I'm thinking about doing. on owls. I kind of like to do a junk journal on owls. Oh, and I want to do a junk journal on bees, but we'll see how those go. I've already done a couple, and it's like I'm not sure how many junk journals that I want to be making. I love making them, but I need to start playing in them and using them, and you know doing something with them. So here, just stamping out this stamp multiple times, and trying to get the best impression I can get, and again stamping off any excess. And so I really like this. It's like to me, this paper almost seems like newsprint, and so I really like it. And here I'm just tearing apart now all these stamped images, because I want to make like little stacks with them that I can put my junk journal and then pull from for whenever I'm playing in my junk journal and I've got stuff to pull from. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just tearing these into, the little stamped images that I have. And some of these, like that one there, I felt like around the edges and stuff could use a little more. So here I'm just going to add some more onto this page because the images didn't stamp really well to begin with, and I thought, well, if I just like add more to it, then it'll just be kind of like a page to use as a background or something to start with, I suppose. And so that's what I'm doing here, and I'm just purposely kind of not trying to get like the best image on this particular page, because I figured I can use it just as a background or something later on. So I'm trying to use that same stamp that I originally stamped on there over other areas, so that the page is kind of sort of more cohesive in the images or whatever, and then ripping that into pieces. And then here, this word stamp, I actually stamped off here just to stamp off, like get some of the ink off, but it actually stamped pretty cool, so I'm like, well, I'm keeping that one. And then that jelly print, it stamped pretty good, and then this other stamped pretty good. So now that I've got all of my stamped images, I'm going to make a couple of paper stacks that I can use in my junk journal. So here I'm dividing these up into two different stacks of stamped images. And you can also add in like other like pieces of craft paper and tracing paper and vellum and all kinds of other papers to pull from as well. But I didn't do that. I just figured I would work with these stamped images. And here I'm lining up all of the tops of the paper, and then I just take my staple and staple it at the top, and there I have all these little papers that I can have in my junk journal to pull from when I'm playing in my junk journal. And I do the same with the other stack, but with this other stack of paper, I decide to just stick a paper clip on there, because you can do either or. You can stick a paper clip, you can staple it like I did, whichever you prefer. And then stuck one in the back of one of my journals. This is the nature journal I created, and then one at the back of the other junk journal that I created. So that way, I have them there when I go playing in my junk journal. So again, I have all those scraps now. This is me showing you how I store these. So I have these zipper bags. So I'm putting all these jelly prints in here because I went through and tore off all the edges. And that's where I keep those. And here's all the coffee dyed ones. And so I just get another one of those zipper bags, and I bought them on Amazon quite a while back, and I just stick the coffee dyed ones into another one of those zipper bags for storage, and then I have a bunch of papers whenever I need them for doing any kind of junk journaling. So I hope that you like this video, and again I will be posting one on how I coffee dye paper and how I do the backgrounds for the jelly prints. So I hope you continue to watch, and I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.